Welcome back to Garage Matters. Today we'll be going over one of the quickest and easiest ways to make horsepower on a turbocharged vehicle by using an electronic boost controller. Now our test vehicle is going to be this 1994 Toyota Celica GT4 WRC. It came with a turbocharged straight from the factory, and the factory wastegate spring was set to 10 psi. Now let's take a look at this turbo so we can understand how this electronic boost controller is going to help regulate this wastegate in order to make that horsepower. Now the factory turbo that was used on the Celica GT4 is a CT20B. Inside of here there's a spring that's set to 10 psi. So once the pressure overcomes 10 psi, it's going to open up this wastegate right here to help relieve that pressure. Now the purpose of this boost controller is to help regulate the spring pressure inside of here. So instead of opening up at 10 psi on the factory setting, we could set it to open up at 15 psi before this wastegate starts to open up and relieve pressure. And by doing that, we're going to keep this wastegate closed right here to give us that 5 pounds of extra boost. Now this boost controller, I've been running it on this car for about 4 years now. This boost controller ran me about 400 bucks. Yes, there are other places where you can spend that money to gain more horsepower, such as putting on a full catback exhaust. So this adjustable exhaust system for the Celica ran me about 700 bucks. You can also put an intake system on this car too, but that's going to run you about 200-300 bucks. These supported mods right here is definitely going to help out the car, but with this electronic boost controller, it's going to give me 5 more pounds of boost at minimum, up to 6 to 7, or however many pounds of boost you want to put in this car to blow up your motor. But all this is at the power of my fingertips rotating that dial. We'll go ahead and hop in this vehicle and take a look at this boost controller. Now we're in my car right now. Where I got it mounted is right beside here. So when I'm shifting gears and changing gears, if I want to change the modes or the settings, I could just reach my hand right here and turn this dial right here. I'm going to try to figure out the best way to get this camera inside here so we can get the best angle so I can show you what I'm doing here. Now even though this boost controller is in the off position, it'll still double up as a boost gauge. Now to get into the settings, we're going to come over here and hit the mode button. Once we hit the mode button, it's going to give us all of our setup options. So as far as pattern, we're just going to press on the knob right here. And this is going to give us a choice on how we want our main page displayed. If you select digit, it's just going to display the digits. We'll turn this knob. Now if you choose bar, it's going to give you a bar graph of your boost pressure. And then down here in the lower right corner, it'll also give you some tiny digital display of your boost pressure. And then we'll go to the last setting. The last setting is graph. Graph is what I like to use when I'm setting up this boost controller. We'll go ahead and select graph. Now with the graph setup, you could choose how far this graph is going to graph out to. So if I'm trying to boost up into about 16 pounds of boost, I want to set this to 16. That way my graph goes all the way up to 16. So my graph is going to be displayed from 0 to 16. The next one is direction. I have it set on right because this gauge is to my right, so my dial is on the left. Brightness, you can control the brightness of this as well. I leave it at 5. 5 is plenty bright enough during the daytime, and that way when it's at night, it's not going to be so bright. And the next one is unit. You could choose to display in bars or PSI. And then we'll come down to the alarm. So this does have 3 different alarm settings. That's 2, 3, 1. Or you could choose off. I like leaving it at 2. Now the last setting is last. I always leave it on. That way when you come off throttle, you can see how much boost pressure you made. Now this next setting, start type. I leave in control because I want my boost controller to be controlling the wastegate. I don't do anything with lock, I just leave it off. And then this is pretty much the setup. We'll go ahead and get out of this menu. Then press the select button down here to turn on this boost controller. Now we're in high boost. To get into low boost, we're going to press this select button again. Now we're in low boost. And there are settings that you can adjust for the low boost mode. Just come over here and press the mode button. Now the set. This really depends on the ambient temperature outside. If it's a hot day, I could crank it up to about 60. But if it's a cold day, I want to dial it back down to about 30. That way, I don't overboost or run the risk of blowing my motor. Now the gain. I always leave it at 0. And I'm going to pull up a graph and talk about why I leave it at 0. Now looking at this graph, we're in high boost mode. This last run, we hit 15.8 pounds of boost. And looking at this graph, if we follow it from left to right, we can see that this CT20B turbo pretty much holds boost all the way to red line. So with this turbo, I don't have to worry about adjusting the gain, because just looking at this graph, I know that that very little dip at the very end is really very minimal, and there's no need for me to change the gain on this setting right here. Now this next setting, start boost. This is probably one of the best settings that comes on this electronic boost controller. Now this number right here represents how much pressure is required to overcome the wastegate actuator to open up the wastegate. Now if my target boost is 14 pounds of boost, what I want to do is increase this number right here, because I don't want that wastegate to start opening up too early. I want it to open up at the very last minute. So what I'm going to do is just turn this up to about 12.5. And by doing this, it's going to keep my wastegate closed until I hit 12.5 pounds of boost, aiming for a target value of 14 pounds of boost. Now the peak setting is going to display the highest boost value from any of your prior runs. We'll come down to warning. So warning is when you want the warning to come on. I've got mine set to 16 pounds of pressure, just in case. Now the limiter works in conjunction with the warning. I've got mine set to 10%. And for some reason, if this engine overboosts over 16 pounds of pressure, this limiter is going to drop it down by 10%. Now I've got my main display back in digits. I like having it in the digits because when I'm sitting over here, I can easily see how much boost I'm building. And if I want to increase my boost pressure, it's as easy as turning this dial right here. Instead of running at 45%, I'm going to bump it up to 60%. Or, if you don't want to do that, you could go directly into your high setting by selecting the select button right here. And now you're in high boost. So it's as simple as that. I don't need to do anything extra. I want to run more boost. Turn this knob, press it in, and I'm done. Running higher boost, running lower boost, really easy with this boost controller. And here comes the disclaimer. Do not use my settings. Every car is set up differently, and depending on the ambient temperature outside, it's also going to affect how you want to set up the settings on your boost controller. But the principles on behind using this boost controller are the same. And hopefully you guys saw how easy it was to use an electronic boost controller to gain an extra 5 pounds of boost. All you gotta do is just turn that dial. So depending on how much your motor can handle, you could go from 5 all the way up to 20 pounds of boost to blow this engine. It really depends on how much your motor can handle. And always, join us next time on Garage Matters and hit that like and subscribe button.